Viuda ranchera salva a una niña marcada como mercancía dañada de una jaula cruel. Marisol's boots crunched against the dry, red soil as she walked along the fence line. The twin suns were dipping behind the jagged mountains, painting the sky in streaks of orange and violet. She paused and wiped sweat from her brow, her eyes scanning the horizon. Her ranch was quiet, too quiet. Ever since her husband had died in a raid years ago, life on the frontier had been lonely. The small ranch she had inherited was more than a livelihood. It was a sanctuary. She raised her livestock, repaired broken machinery, and kept herself busy with the endless chores. She was a widow, yes, but she was also strong, independent, and determined to survive in a galaxy that often seemed cruel to humans. Tonight, however, there was something different in the air. A soft hum, almost like the distant whisper of machinery, reached her ears. She frowned. Her ranch was far from the nearest settlement, and most nights were quiet except for the occasional howl of desert predators. But this hum, it was mechanical, unnatural. Marisol's eyes narrowed. She adjusted the strap of her tool belt and started walking toward the source of the noise. The desert stretched out before her, rocks and scrub bathed in the fading light. The hum grew louder as she approached the edge of a dry canyon where the remains of an abandoned industrial compound sat half buried in the red dust. The compound had been deserted for decades, ever since the human trading guilds abandoned the region. Rusted metal walls jutted from the ground, and broken solar panels reflected the last rays of the sun. Yet from within the ruins, a faint glow pulsed rhythmically, almost like a heartbeat. Marisol's instincts screamed caution, but curiosity pushed her forward. She crouched behind a fallen wall and peeked inside. Her heart stopped. Inside a dimly lit chamber, a small figure huddled in a cage. The cage was unlike anything she had seen before. Metal bars reinforced with some strange alloy that shimmered under the light. And on the girl's arm a mark glowed faintly. Damaged goods. The girl looked no older than 10, her clothes torn and dirty, her hair matted with dust. Her eyes, wide with fear, met Marisol's. There was a spark there, a silent plea for help that resonated deep inside her. Marisol's hands clenched into fists. Rage surged through her veins. Humans? Reduced to goods? The thought made her blood boil. She had survived attacks, droughts, and thieves, but nothing enraged her more than seeing another human treated like property. She crouched lower, studying the cage and the faint lights that surrounded it. Drones hovered near the ceiling, scanning the area in sharp, precise arcs. Automated turrets were mounted in the corners, ready to fire at any intruder. A compound was alive, its machinery alert and dangerous. Yet Marisol did not flinch. She had faced worse on her own ranch. Raiders who thought a woman alone could be an easy target. She had outsmarted them, armed only with a lasso, a rifle, and sheer determination. Tonight, she would save this girl or die trying. The hum grew louder, and the girl flinched, curling into herself. Marisol whispered softly, almost to herself, "Hold on, little one. I'm coming." She took a deep breath and began circling the compound, looking for weaknesses. The walls were high, but not unscalable. There were vents along the side, broken panels, and a few shadows where the drone's sensors might miss. She noted every detail, every patrol pattern, every possible route. This was not the time for recklessness. Night fell fully, and the stars began to glitter across the sky. Marisol moved with the silence of a predator, her boots kicking up only whispers of dust. She had to rely on every skill she had learned from years of surviving alone on the frontier. Every fence she built, every animal she tended, every trap she had set in the past was now training for this moment. At last, she found her way to a side entrance, a small vent that had been partially destroyed by an old storm. She pried it open with a crowbar, the metal groaning but not giving an alarm. Inside, the compound smelled of rust, oil, and something sour. Fear. She crawled carefully through the narrow passage, her heart hammering. The faint glow of the girl's mark guided her steps, a beacon in the dark. As she approached the cage, she crouched behind a support beam and studied the mechanisms locking it. It was intricate, but not impossible. Marisol's fingers brushed against the metal, feeling the hum of energy coursing through the locks. She muttered under her breath, calculating, thinking, remembering every tool she had at her disposal. A faint beep made her freeze. One of the drones had spotted movement. Its red eye swept the room. Marisol held her breath, heart thudding in her chest. Then it rotated away, and she exhaled slowly. She had seconds, maybe a minute at most. She grabbed a small device from her belt, a homemade jammer, crafted from old livestock drones and spare parts. She pressed a sequence of buttons, and the humming lights flickered and died for a moment. Perfect. The lock clicked. Marisol's hands worked quickly, picking the cage mechanism with steady, practiced movements. She whispered to the girl, keeping her voice calm and low, "Don't be afraid. I'm here to help."
Can you stand?
The girl nodded slowly, tears streaking her dusty cheeks. She tried to move, but her limbs were weak from confinement. Marisol lifted her carefully, feeling the weight of her small body and the vulnerability it carried. As they turned to leave, a sudden alarm blared through the compound. The drones reactivated, scanning the room. Marisol's pulse raced. She needed to move fast. She dashed toward the vent, dragging the girl behind her. Sparks flew as a turret rotated to track them, but the vent was small enough to hide in the shadows. They crawled through the narrow metal tunnel, the girl trembling against her chest. Marisol whispered encouragement, her own voice steady even as adrenaline surged. Finally, they emerged outside. The desert night greeted them, cool and silent. The stars overhead shone like a million tiny eyes, watching their escape. Marisol lowered the girl to the ground and brushed the dust from her clothes. "You're safe now," she said. "I won't let anyone hurt you again." The girl looked up, her eyes wide with disbelief and hope. "You," she whispered. Marisol smiled faintly. Hope was a fragile thing, but it was powerful. She knew the dangers were far from over. The compound would not let them go easily. The patrol drones would search, the bounty hunters would come, and the galaxy was full of those who saw humans as nothing more than commodities. But tonight, she had made a difference. Tonight, she had chosen courage. And for humans like her, and this girl, the galaxy was worth fighting for. Marisol lifted her chin and scanned the horizon. There was a settlement a few kilometers away, a place where they might find allies. But the journey would be perilous. They would face harsh terrain, relentless pursuers, and unknown dangers. Yet she did not hesitate. She had survived storms, raids, and loneliness. She would survive this too. "Come on," she said to the girl. "We have a long walk ahead." As they disappeared into the desert shadows, the faint glow of Leah's mark dimmed slightly, but a spark of life remained. And in that spark, Marisol saw something she had thought she had lost long ago. A reason to fight, a reason to hope, and a reason to believe in the strength of humans. The stars shone down, indifferent yet beautiful, and under them, A widow rancher and a little girl began their journey, not just to escape, but to reclaim their freedom. In the galaxy's vast emptiness, humanity's courage was a light no machine could extinguish. The desert had grown colder, and the twin moons hung high in the sky like pale sentinels watching their every move. Marisol moved cautiously, her boots silent against the soft sand, while Leah clutched her hand tightly. The settlement had offered temporary shelter, food, and guidance, but now it was time to act. The compound loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the horizon, pulsing faintly with menacing light. Marisol paused atop a ridge, letting her eyes sweep over the terrain. The compound's defenses were more sophisticated than she had imagined. Drones patrolled methodically, their red sensors sweeping across the desert. Automated turrets glinted in the moonlight, ready to fire at the slightest sign of movement. And in the center, a towered structure glowed faintly, the heart of the facility, the control hub, where all operations were monitored. Rico crouched beside her, his fingers brushing over a portable device. "The sensors are networked," he whispered. "If we trigger one, the whole system will know we're here." K7, the robotic shepherd, moved silently beside them. Its eyes glowed a soft blue, scanning the terrain for threats. "We can disable the perimeter if we distract the drones," it said in a mechanical, calm voice. Marisol nodded. "Then that's our plan. K7, you draw attention. Rico, you disrupt the sensors. Leah and I go inside and find the captives." She glanced at Leah, whose eyes widened in both fear and determination. "We move together. Stay close to me and trust yourself." The girl swallowed hard and nodded. I can do it." Marisol smiled faintly. Humans survived because they adapted, she thought. And this little girl, once marked as damaged, already showed signs of resilience and intelligence. She was learning that humans were more than the systems that tried to control them. K7 stepped forward first, moving openly into the compound's sensor range. The drones immediately shifted, scanning the robotic intruder. Marisol counted the seconds, her pulse steady. At the right moment, Rico activated his device. Sparks flickered along the fence line, and several drones flickered and froze, their sensors temporarily jammed. "Now," Marisol whispered. She and Leah dashed toward a side entrance, shadows blending with the darkness. The air inside the compound was cold and metallic. The faint hum of machinery filled the corridors, punctuated by distant, echoing footsteps. Marisol kept her senses sharp. Every step could trigger an alarm. Every sound could alert guards. They reached a series of cages along one hallway. Each cage held humans, children, and even teens, their arms marked with glowing stamps, their faces pale with fear and exhaustion. Some were asleep, some stared blankly, others whispered prayers or cries for help. Marisol's heart clenched. These were human beings, not goods, not cargo. She would not leave them behind. Leah gasped softly, clutching Marisol's arm.
"There are so many." "Yes," Marisol said, her voice steady.
"And we're going to get them all out. Stay close to me." Marisol and Leah moved quickly, unlocking cages with a mixture of skill and improvisation. Leah's small hands proved useful. She was able to slip through narrow gaps to unlatch locks, while Marisol kept watch. Together, they freed several captives, guiding them quietly toward a hidden exit. But just as they approached the final cage, an alarm blared. A drone's red eye swept over them, and the metallic clatter of boots echoed through the corridor. Marisol's pulse quickened, but she did not falter. "They're coming," she whispered to the children. Follow me. Stay low. Marisol led the group through a narrow service corridor, K7 moving ahead to block and confuse the guards. Rico's devices had disabled some of the sensors, but the compound security system was resilient. Turrets rotated, tracking movement, and guards shouted commands into comms. Marisol gritted her teeth. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but humans had a trait no machine could replicate: creativity under pressure. She led the captives through a series of twisting corridors, using knowledge she had gathered on previous scouting trips. The shadows, the broken walls, and the occasional vent became allies in their flight. A group of guards cornered them near a junction. Marisol thought fast. She grabbed a loose panel and flung it to the side. Sparks erupted, blinding the guards momentarily. "Go!" she shouted. Leah and the children ran while Marisol stayed behind to block the path. She swung a metal pipe, not to hurt, but to push debris onto the guards. It worked. The guards stumbled, giving the group just enough time to escape. They emerged into the compound's central courtyard, where the heart of the facility pulsed ominously. The central hub, where all data and control systems were stored, was their next target. Rico had warned that destroying it would cripple the entire operation. Marisol glanced at Leah. "Are you ready?" The girl nodded, her fear tempered by determination. She had seen the horrors of the compound, but she also saw the courage humans could summon. Marisol realized something crucial. This little girl, once marked as damaged, was becoming strong in the face of adversity. Together, they approached the hub. Rico had already hacked the entrance panel, disabling some of the security protocols. Marisol and Leah slipped inside, greeted by a room filled with glowing consoles and pulsing lights. Data streamed across the screens, recording every human, every shipment, every mark stamped on the victims. Marisol's hands flew over the consoles, guided by intuition and some instruction from Rico. Leah copied her movements, following every command and helping input codes. The hub was sophisticated, but the ingenuity and focus of humans, curiosity, adaptability, and determination, proved stronger. "Almost there," Marisol muttered. She pressed the final sequence. Sparks flew, alarms rang. The hub began to shut down, lights flickering and screens going dark. The compound systems were failing. Outside, K7 and Rico fought a battle of their own, distracting guards and keeping drones occupied. Marisol knew their time was limited. The entire facility could collapse or retaliate at any moment. She took a deep breath, grabbed Leah's hand, and led the captives toward the exit. They ran through the corridors as the lights died, metal groaning and alarms echoing. Some guards tried to stop them, but Marisol, Leah, and K7 moved with precision and courage. Humans had survived far worse: raiders, storms, betrayal, and tonight was no different. Finally, they emerged into the desert night. The cool air felt like freedom, and the stars above shone with sharp clarity. The group paused, catching their breath. The compound's lights flickered behind them, the hum of machines replaced by silence. Marisol looked at the freed captives, then at Leah. "We did it," she said softly. "We're free." Leah's eyes filled with tears, and she clutched Marisol tightly. We really did it." Marisol smiled faintly. Freedom was sweet, but danger still lingered. The compound might rebuild, pursue them, or send reinforcements. But tonight, humans had triumphed, not through brute strength alone, but through courage, intelligence, and compassion. "Come on," Marisol said. "We need to get to the settlement. We need to make sure everyone is safe." The journey back was tense. Every shadow seemed to move. Every sound echoed in the desert. but Marisol's leadership, Leah's growing confidence, and the teamwork of their allies carried them forward. As they walked, Marisol realized something profound. Humans were resilient. Machines could be clever, guards could be ruthless, but humans had something machines could never replicate: heart. Intelligence, yes. Courage, absolutely. But above all, compassion and determination. That was why they survived, why they fought, and why they could reclaim freedom even in the darkest places. Leah looked up at Marisol. I want to help more. I don't want anyone else to be trapped like I was. Marisol nodded. Then you will. Humans fight for each other. That's what makes us strong. The group reached the settlement just as the first light of dawn touched the desert. The freed captives were taken in, fed, and given medical attention. The settlement's residents worked tirelessly, helping those who had suffered so much. Marisol stood apart for a moment, watching the sunrise. She thought of her husband, of the life she had lost, and of the strength she had found in herself. She thought of Leah, a girl once marked as damaged, now shining with hope and courage. The galaxy was dangerous. It was cruel, often indifferent. But humans had something rare and precious: resilience, ingenuity, and the moral courage to protect those who could not protect themselves. Marisol smiled faintly. This was only the beginning. The pursuit might continue, the dangers might return, but humans would face them. They always did. And as the twin suns rose over the frontier planet, Marisol, Leah, and their allies prepared to fight not just for survival, but for freedom, dignity, and the strength of humanity itself. The battle had been won, but the war for justice, for compassion, and for human courage was just beginning. The sun had barely risen over the jagged horizon, casting long shadows across the desert, when Marisol stood at the edge of the settlement. Her eyes scanned the barren landscape, now familiar, yet still dangerous. Beyond the dunes lay the ruined compound, but she knew that even in ruins, danger lingered. The machinery might be disabled, the drones scattered, but the humans who ran this cruel place would not let go so easily. Marisol adjusted her coat and checked the equipment she had prepared: improvised energy disruptors, ropes, and a few handheld devices crafted from spare parts. Leah stood beside her, her small figure determined yet fragile, holding the hand of a child they had rescued the previous night. The girl's eyes were bright with hope, but also fear. She had seen what humans could endure and what cruelty they could inflict. "Are you ready?" Marisol asked softly, kneeling to meet Leah's gaze. "I am," the girl replied, her voice steady. "I want to help. I don't want anyone else to be trapped." Marisol smiled faintly. Humans had this remarkable ability. Even after suffering, they could fight back, not just for themselves, but for others. It was courage, yes, but also empathy, determination, and ingenuity, traits no machine could mimic. Rico and K7 joined them. The ex-mercenary adjusted his device, which was designed to disrupt the compound's remaining sensors. K7's mechanical eyes glowed softly, scanning the horizon. "I will handle perimeter security," it said. "Humans will have the advantage if distractions are deployed correctly." Marisol nodded. "Then, let's begin." The plan was simple but daring. K7 would create diversions across the compound's perimeter, drawing guards and drones away from the main entrance. Rico would jam communications and sensors, giving Marisol and Leah access to the central hub. Once inside, they would destroy the control systems, freeing any remaining captives and crippling the compound's operations. Timing, precision, and human ingenuity would be critical. As they approached the compound, Marisol could see movement in the shadows. Guards patrolled cautiously, and drones hovered silently in the sky. The facility was alert, but the humans moving toward it were calm, prepared, and clever. K7 advanced first, moving boldly into the open. Drones detected it immediately, their sensors tracking the mechanical intruder. Sparks and lights flashed as the robot deployed false signals and noise, drawing the drone's attention. Guards shouted commands and ran toward K7, thinking it was a breach, while Rico activated his portable jammer. A wave of interference disabled some of the remaining sensors, creating a narrow window of opportunity.
Now!
Marisol whispered. She grabbed Leah's hand and sprinted toward the side entrance, slipping through a narrow gap in the wall. The air inside was cold and metallic, humming with residual energy from the damaged systems. The corridors were eerily quiet. The faint hum of machinery lingered, punctuated by distant echoes of guards' boots. Marisol led Leah through the maze-like hallways, careful to avoid the remaining surveillance points. She had studied the compound meticulously during their previous visit, and now every step counted. They reached the first row of cages. Inside, humans huddled, weak and fearful. Some were crying quietly, others stared blankly at the walls. Marisol's heart ached, but she did not falter. "Stay calm," she whispered. "You're safe now. Follow me." Leah helped open the locks, her small hands moving quickly and carefully. Each click of a mechanism was a victory, each freed captive a reminder of human resilience. The group moved silently, shadows slipping through shadows toward the central hub. But alarms suddenly blared, red lights flashed, and a cold, mechanical voice announced, "Intruder detected. Security lockdown activated." Marisol's pulse quickened.
Move! Stick together!
She shouted. Guards poured into the corridors, armed and alert. Turrets rotated, tracking movement, while drones hovered above, scanning with precision. Marisol led the captives through a side passage she had noted earlier, a narrow service corridor that twisted unpredictably. One guard lunged toward them. Marisol grabbed a metal pipe from the wall, swinging it not to harm but to knock over a crate. Sparks flew as the crate toppled, creating a barrier between them and the guard. The group continued, every movement calculated, every step critical. They reached the hub. The room was filled with glowing consoles and wires, the heart of the compound's control systems. Marisol approached the main console, her fingers flying over the buttons and panels. Leah mimicked her movements, guided by the confidence she had gained over the past days. "Almost there," Marisol muttered. She input the final commands, initiating a sequence to destroy the central servers. Sparks erupted, screens went dark, and alarms shifted into a low, wailing tone. The compound systems were shutting down, powerless. Outside, K7 continued its distraction, drawing guards and drones away from the hub. Rico's devices jammed communications, preventing the reinforcements from organizing. Human ingenuity and courage had turned the tide, even against advanced machinery and merciless humans. Marisol grabbed Leah's hand and led the freed captives toward the exit. Turrets swiveled, guards shouted, but the group moved with precision and determination. They emerged into the desert night, the cool air washing over them like a wave of freedom. Marisol paused, looking at the group of survivors. Their faces were pale, exhausted, but in their eyes burned a spark of hope. She smiled faintly. Humans had survived because they adapted, because they worked together, because they refused to give up even when the odds were impossible.
Leah looked up at her, eyes bright.
We did it, she said softly.
Yes, Marisol replied.
We did, but this is only the beginning.
There are others out there, and we need to keep fighting. The group began the long walk back to the settlement. Every shadow seemed threatening, every sound amplified in the quiet desert. But Marisol's calm confidence guided them. Leah walked beside her, her steps steady, no longer trembling. She had learned courage, resilience, and the power of trust. As dawn broke over the horizon, painting the desert in gold and red, Marisol reflected on the journey. The galaxy was cruel, indifferent, and often dangerous. But humans had something rare and valuable: courage, ingenuity, and heart. Machines could be clever, but they could not inspire hope, adapt in the face of fear, or fight for something beyond themselves. Humans could. The group reached the settlement safely. The freed captives were welcomed, fed, and tended to. Their eyes were filled with gratitude, and some clung to Marisol, whispering thanks and hope. Marisol knelt beside Leah, brushing dust from her hair. "You were brave," she said, "stronger than you know, and you helped save them all."
Leah smiled faintly. I wasn't useless, was I? Marisol shook her head.
Never. Humans are never useless. We fight, we endure, we protect. That's who we are. Rico approached, clapping Marisol on the shoulder.
You did it, he said. We did it.
The compound won't be hurting anyone for a long time. K7's mechanical voice sounded behind them. Humans have proven their strength. Strategy, courage, and heart overcome even the most advanced systems. Marisol stood, looking at the horizon. The desert stretched out endlessly, dangerous and wild. But in that vast emptiness, humans had made a mark, not just surviving, but thriving, protecting, and inspiring hope. Leah squeezed her hand. What now? Marisol looked down at the little girl, then at the survivors around them. Now, we rebuild. We prepare. We make sure humans always have a chance, no matter how cruel the galaxy becomes. The twin suns rose higher, casting their light across the frontier planet. Marisol knew the path ahead would not be easy. The galaxy was vast, and danger was everywhere. But she also knew this: humans had something no machine could ever take away: courage, ingenuity, empathy, and the moral strength to fight for what was right. And with that knowledge, Marisol, Leah, and their allies began the work of creating a future where humans would always be free, always resilient, and always special. The compound lay in ruins behind them, its systems destroyed, its cruelty ended for now. But the story of humans rising above oppression, of courage overcoming machinery, of hope and heart-defeating cruelty, was just beginning. In the vastness of the frontier, humans had proven once again that even in the darkest corners of the galaxy, light could shine through determination, cleverness, and the strength of the human spirit. And so, under the twin suns, a widow rancher, a brave little girl, and their human allies prepared to face whatever the galaxy would throw at them next, not as victims, but as humans, resilient, clever, and unstoppable.